Hello, everybody. Happy Easter. So, on Friday, when we finished our readings, Joseph of Arimathea had gone to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. Do you remember? And he took it down off the cross and he wrapped it and put it in a tomb. And the women were there and they got things ready for the burial, but they had to wait because the next day was Saturday and it was the Sabbath. And so then they had to wait until Sunday morning before they could come back. Do you remember all that? So let's pick up where we left off. On Sunday morning, Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and some other women went back to the tomb. To their amazement, the stone had been rolled away. The women went inside. Jesus' body was gone. Suddenly, two men in shining white clothes stood beside them at the tomb. The women were afraid and fell on their knees. One of the men said, "Why are you looking in the place of the dead for someone who is alive? Jesus isn't here. He has risen from death." The women left the tomb. They had to tell the 11 disciples right away. Most of the disciples didn't believe the story, but Peter ran to the tomb. He looked inside. The only thing he saw was the fine cloth that Joseph of Arimathea had wrapped around the body of Jesus 2 days before. Jesus is alive. Two men were on their way out of the city. The men were followers of Jesus. They had believed he was the one who would save Israel. Now they were sad. Save Israel. The disciples, like the rest of the Jews, were looking for someone to rescue them from Roman rule. Jesus had come to save Israel, but in a different way. He came to rescue people from their sins and help them become holy. He was not trying to take over the government of Israel. On the road, they met a stranger. The stranger walked with them for a while. They talked about everything that had happened to Jesus. The stranger told them not to be sad. Everything had happened as God had planned. When the stranger had gone, the men knew that they had been talking to Jesus. They hurried back to Jerusalem to tell his disciples. The disciples were all together. They listened to the men's story. Could this be true? They asked one another. As they were talking, they heard another voice speaking to them. They looked up. Jesus was standing there beside them. The disciples were struck with fear. This must be a ghost, they thought. Jesus said, "Why are you afraid? Why do you doubt? Look at my hands and feet and see who I am. Touch me. Ghosts don't have flesh and bones, as you see I have." The disciples were so amazed they could not believe their eyes. Then Jesus asked for something to eat. They gave him a piece of baked fish and watched as he ate it. Something to eat. Again, people believed that eating was a sign that someone was alive, since ghosts don't need food to survive. I'm going to read just a little bit of this next one. Jesus stayed with his 11 apostles for 40 days. He spoke with them, about God's kingdom. And there he is. So it's not the end of the story, but it's where we're going to stop today for Easter Sunday, when we remember Jesus rising from the dead and coming back to appear to his disciples. I hope you guys have a great Easter, and the reality of that can settle in deep in your hearts and cause you to have great joy today. We'll see you next week for our Treasured Connections. But that's the end of our Easter readings. Bye for now.